I've seen that there are a lot of fluctuations that keep happening.
Very true.
Like day in and day out, you keep receiving phone calls that something wrong is happening and
Very
you need to
true.
go there and sort out. Like
Very
how,
true.
like what happens at that point of time?
Very true. So these are highly highly complicated deals. Your stress levels are very high. My face from being a boy changed to looking like a man because of the stress levels that I had. There was a deal that we had to sign in Bangalore where I had to literally stay in the developer's office overnight, sleep on the floor, just to get a JD agreement signed the next morning. I had to sit with this lawyer on a holiday. We actually worked through the Sunday and through the Ayodhya Puja and all that, just to actually get the agreement finalized because of some last minute hiccups. So we actually sat, camped there, and actually got things done, and it takes a toll on your health. You can see your hair falling. You can see you vomiting acid. It's crazy. So your stress levels are very high.
Welcome to one more episode of Getting Real with Real Tycoon. So this is one more episode where we are also in association with KREA, Chennai Real Estate Agent Association. So on this particular episode, we are having one more ex-president of KREA who is heading a company called Realty Serve. He has about vast experience of almost 15 years, Mr. Amit Damodara.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you so much for being on the show, sir.
Yeah.
So diving into the kind of things that you have gone through till now. So according to what I have heard, how you entered real estate has been very kind of different experience and it's pretty interesting. Can you just give a brief about like how you entered real estate?
Real estate is purely by chance, not by choice. In the year 2004, I wanted to set up a restaurant. So I came out of the family business and I was looking for some spaces. Actually went around the entire city, met about 40 brokers, saw more than about 100 spaces. And I was not at all happy with the kind of professionalism in the field. But then eventually, some of my friends who actually wanted to set up boutiques or want to set up salons, I suggested to those people to go and see some of actually these places that were shown to me for the purpose of a restaurant. They liked all those places. They went and they actually took them up. And then I thought that maybe real estate for me could be something like a filler. I could work as a real estate agent till I maybe found the right place for my restaurant.
Okay.
So my search continues, and I'm actually still a real estate agent. Well, jokes apart. So 2004 is actually when I cracked a couple of rental deals. These were through other brokers who actually showed me spaces, and then I had some friends who were looking for some spaces. But that wasn't like great. Making commissions of 15,000, 25,000, 30,000 wasn't like the kick. So I started looking around for the bigger opportunity, and then I realized that land was the big opportunity. At that stage, IT was just coming in. It had already become 2005, and then we realized that OMR was actually driving the space. So at that time, I actually got a partner, Albert Joseph, and then two of us went and mapped the entire OMR and ECR, and we were only focusing on those larger land parcels. So I know OMR like the back of my hand. I could tell you the property is door to door. We have driven down there, every day for about 8 years. That's how well I know it. And in 2005 and 2006, we realized that those larger land parcels couldn't be developed by Chennai builders because they didn't have the relevant experience, nor they had the investment capacity. So I went to Bangalore, spoke to the larger brands there, Brigade and Mantri and Satva and Puravankara, met everyone out there. Showed them, brought them here to Chennai, and I also knew all the rules, CMDA, DTCP rules, acquisition rules, government departments, everything. So we were like knowledge powerhouses. They would just come to Chennai and we would show them lands and we would give them presentations. They would just go ahead and take it. So that's been the journey from 2004 right up to now. Yes, of course, there have been a lot of other businesses that we've done on the way in actually real estate, not just land.
So when you see yourself before 15 years and now, what kind of differences do you see in yourself with regards to mindset and various other aspects?
So 15 years is a very, very long time. 15 years typically you see two cycles of actually real estate. So real estate cycle is 7 years. So let me just run you through in brief. 2004 is when I started, and then 2006 is when we did our first big land deal. that went on till about 2008, and then we turned developers. We actually started developing layouts. We have developed and sold more than 150 acres of land in Sri Perumbudur. We've done plotted developments there. Then we've done layouts in actually Mahabalipuram, completely sold out again. And from then on, I took a break from real estate in 2014. 2014 to 2016 is a time that I was looking for other opportunities, and at the time I was also the head of Kriya. I was as the secretary and then subsequently the president. 2016, when my term ended, that's when I started thinking bigger in actually terms of real estate. So we 7 of us came together from across India, and we formed a pan-India brand known as Realty Sir. So that particular 2 years, 2014 to actually 2016, was a very, very enriching experience. It actually taught me a lot. As when you had an association of equals, everyone is equal out there. It's very different from actually running some kind of a company of your own. So also you actually begin to understand larger interests, and you begin to understand different styles of business. And during that phase, I was heading education and I was heading technology. So we developed standard operating procedures for all kinds of business. So in 2016, when I came out, then we started a commercial division, then we started a residential division. Today we have a brand new industrial division, which is known as All Warehouses. This is something that we started now in actually 2018. We also have a new brand which is actually known as Luxclusive Homes, which actually sells apartments 3 crores plus. So the journey has been long, highly varied. We realize that we need to be specialists, and we have separate verticals that are special in their own way. At the end of the day, we actually plan to be like a one-stop shop. So if a developer wants land, we could help him in land, we could help him in licensing, we could help him in actually private equity, raising money, funding. We actually help in actually product design, we could also help him sell other products. So we want to encompass the entire scope of real estate. And in terms of industrial, we actually want to be the biggest leasing company pan-India, and obviously once you begin to lease space for actually industrial park developers and for warehouse developers, then you begin to find them exits. So you actually begin to sell pre-lease assets, and then you begin to find them new land to develop. So once again you actually create complete 360-degree view of that entire industry. So that's where we are actually evolving.
So when it comes to handling all this like setting up new verticals in this particular process, and like changing from development to again real estate, and real estate to becoming secretary of Kriya and president of Kriya. So did you feel, there was any discomfort, or how was the shift? How did you make yourself adaptable for the shift?
So all of this comes naturally. Kriya is a different story. In 2014 there were some issues, and we actually came to resolve it, and then take the association to a new high. Prior to that, we were doing land, and it was Albert and me. So we used to do these large deals, and then close office for 2 months and go for international trips and all of that. And from 2016 onwards, it is a whole lot different, because you have so many verticals, you have so many people that depend on your experience to actually guide them through. So we have to spend a lot more time here with each and every vertical separately. All verticals are actually independent of each other.
Any segment that you are working on right now, industrial, luxury real estate, and on the other hand commercial real estate, so there's a lot of verticals within the same company again. So how do you try to blend the mix and actually handle the mix, right? Exactly.
So every vertical is actually independent, like I just told you. There is a separate head for a particular vertical. He has his own team. So the head actually takes care of all the day-to-day operations. He takes care of strategizing. He decides where he wants to be, what his targets are. And of course we actually sit and we have discussions with the team. We actually set a vision for the month. We set a vision for the week. Typically, I like everyone knowing what they need to do over the next week, and then we keep reviewing it week after week. Coming back to the macro perspective, like I said, every vertical has their own team. So all of them decide what they need to do. Everyone needs to go in actually their direction. So when the team has an issue, their own head actually tries and solve it, and when it's not solvable, that's when it comes to me. The overall strategizing part is actually done by me, but the functionality is by everybody else, and we all sit together. Everything is jointly done.
But ultimately, it's always that you need to have the knowledge that is required for all these verticals. Again, each vertical in itself is a vast knowledge that is required. So how do you actually manage that part?
In terms of knowledge,
Yeah.
Everything is based on actually discussion. So we look at every industry differently. Now, when we started with land, we obviously sourced land for developers. So we know the developer thought process. We understand it completely. What a developer looks for when he's looking at land. What's the price that he needs to sell at, and then discounting the time value, the construction cost, discounting their approval cost. So we arrive at that at a particular land value. So we understand that developers look at a 24% IRR. So I wouldn't even show a land to a developer if I feel that land doesn't have the potential to actually give that particular IRR. Now, if the land can give that IRR, then I can arrange funding for a developer. So it's all one single blend. If you know exactly what a developer requires, then you backward calculate, and if it works for a developer, then it works for the fund house, and it also works for the market. So it starts with land. You actually get the right product mix. So you actually get the right architects in there, give them the right brief, and you actually get the right funder. Then you have already designed a product which you can sell, and then the cycle continues. So the same way, every vertical has that. But when you talk about selling luxury exclusive homes, that's a little different. This particular segment is actually struggling because people don't really want to splurge at this time. But there is a dearth. Like if somebody really wants to buy an exclusive home, there are still 30 options which are actually 3 crores plus. So people are not able to use the right filters and actually arrive at their right home. So we are out there just to help them use the right filters. We are like a one-stop shop. You don't need to go to 30 people and actually find out what's different from each of them. So we do all of that. We actually sit with you, understand each and every requirement of yours, and we actually filter and give it to you. In actually industrial, so basically the idea is that we want to do everything a little bit differently. We are just identifying that particular spot that is unattended to. That is all that we are trying to fill. Absolutely nothing else. In terms of industrial, once again, it's the same thing. If you wanted to take a warehouse or if you want to take a factory, you have to go to so many sites, and even if you go to a Magic Bricks, you will only find 8 valid listings on that site. But if you go to my site, then you find 500 valid listings. So we are just aggregating the entire market and bringing everything out there. We want to be a one-stop shop for each and every vertical. So we're just doing things differently. So the demand is there. We are just making it easier for the customer.
So when you actually look at all the 7 to 8 verticals that you are working on, and you boil down all these verticals and see the principles that are actually involved in the dynamics of how these industries work, do you think are there any certain principles like that are common in all of them?
So, there are a lot of things that are common, a lot of things that are specific to actually every industry. All that we are trying to do is just make it easier for the tenant or make it easier for the buyer to actually find precisely what he wants. So we're bringing all the options under one single roof, and from there we apply filters, and then we actually give him precisely what he wants. So that's the way that we actually do things differently. If like for example, if you want land parcels of developers, I could give you 60 lands today that will be financially viable for a builder. So I can go and sit with the builder, spend about 3 hours with him, filter from the 60, and then just understand his mindset, whether he wants to do commercial, he wants to do residential, what is his initial investment that he's looking for, what is his brand perceived as in the market. So we identify that, and then we actually give him the right land for him to do his right product. Well, first, when I joined Kriya, way back in 2005, there was a time that brokers used to follow brokers just to find out which properties they are actually selling, go and reach out to those owners hidingly. So Kriya was competition. But then it took time. When I came in as a president, perhaps it had already started before that. People started understanding that we are not competition. We are actually partners. But 2014 to actually 2016 is actually when we built that bonding, where we began to trust each other. First is we had meetings every week. which was not done earlier.
Yeah.
And when you do weekly meetings, first you see a person, then you begin to recognize a person. Once you recognize, then the trust builds, and then both of us begin to do business. So we realize that we're collaborators. So Kriya is more of a collaboration platform.
So when it comes to again, and I mean reaching out developers, like how do you understand like this particular land parcel actually suitable for this particular developer, and how do you actually look at those things?
So we look at the background of the particular developer. There's a certain brand perception. Now, when you talk about Casa Grande is Chennai's biggest developer today, but his brand is perceived more as a budget brand. See, even if you were to buy a Maruti car, Maruti failed to actually sell their Ciaz. They also failed to sell their Kizashi. So there's a customer perception that this particular brand only develops residential and they only do budget, or this particular brand develops residential and they only do high end. So there are certain brands like actually Express and Sebros and Sumant and Vishranti that are known to develop high-end residential. Basham is also out there. So we understand that this particular property suits the profile of that particular developer. Deal sizes typically take anything between 9 months to a year. That's from the date that the developers come and finalize with the owner till the date of registration or signing. It takes 9 months or 12 months.
So how is it like that particular 9 months? Because though I have not handled such kind of deals, but I have tried being part of something of that sort, and I have seen that there are a lot of fluctuations that keep happening.
Very true.
Like day in and day out, we keep receiving phone calls that something wrong is happening and
Very
you need to
true.
go there and sort out. Like what happens at that point of time?
Very true. So these are highly complicated deals. Typically, to sell a land parcel of that size is very difficult, and I'm only talking 9 to 12 months only from the date of finalization. What is the background? I mean, how long does it take us to finalize? That could be anything between 6 months to 8 years. So there's one landlord who has been giving me exclusive mandates year after year for the last 8 years, and I'm not selling it because I'm not finding the right person to actually take that, or it's not the right time, or it's not the right price. So we decide that everything has to be perfect for that, and I know landlords are willing to actually wait with us. But once the deal is finalized, then there are loads of fluctuations because legal is highly complicated, approval is complicated, rules keep changing. So yes, these deals are highly stressful. Yeah, and there was one particular deal that I had actually done for Mantri, which was actually Signature Villas. It was a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's a very, very large transaction. My face from being a boy changed to looking like a man because of the stress levels that I had. There was a deal that we had to sign in Bangalore where I had to literally stay in the developer's office overnight, sleep on the floor, just to get a JD agreement signed the next morning. I had to sit with his lawyer on a holiday. We actually worked through the Sunday and through the Ayuda Puja and all that, just to actually get the agreement finalized because of some last minute hiccups. So we actually sat, camped there, and actually got things done, and it takes a toll on your health. You can see your hair falling. You can see you vomiting acid. It's crazy. So your stress levels are very high. I can handle it 50% of what I could earlier. Yeah, but that's a big change. So some people handle stress better. Maybe I'm not very good at handling stress.
For the very first time when I received phone call, though I am not as old as you, that's a different thing. But for the very first time when I got the phone call that something wrong is something wrong is going on, like I started shivering. What should I do? Because the decision making capability at that point of time is completely. It's based upon that.
Yes.
So when it comes to your decision making capability, are there any principles that you actually keep following?
We've seen larger deals fail on the day of signing, on the day of registration. After you put in 1 year of hard work, maybe the seller told the buyer something and it hit his ego, and he doesn't want to sell a property worth 100 crores. Now the buyer has his 100 crores with him, the seller has his property worth 100 crores with him, and the only loser is you as a broker in the middle. Because the seller can anyway sell it anytime, he's going to get his money, the buyer has his money with him, he can buy something else. Person who has lost time and effort is you as a broker. So we've seen deals fail at the sub-registrar office after putting in 1 year of hard work. And there's nothing that you can do about it once it hits a person's ego. So beyond a certain stage, subject to legal diligence, subject to technical and approval diligence, it is about handling people. So you mature over the years, you actually begin to understand that real estate is not about a transaction. beyond the point, it's not about financials, it is not about legal, it is actually not about any diligence, it's purely about handling egos and handling people. That is all it ends up being. So we know how to pass any stage from the experience. You can see, I can see a land and I can tell you whether this will clear legal. I can just see the property and tell you. I just need to walk the boundaries of the property, spend about half an hour at the land and I'll tell you whether this will clear legal. I don't need to look at papers. That is something that we learn from experience. Technical diligence, financial diligence is actually something that's in our blood. So we understand what's the selling price, what's the product that will sell, whether what's the land price, what the land price should be. I can tell you that in 60 seconds. I actually don't need Excel sheets, I actually don't need calculators. I can tell you in 60 seconds, this is the price I should buy the land. Regarding legal diligence, once again going back, that I could look at the land and say it 9 out of 10 times I would be right. The remaining 10% depends on the lawyer, but from experience you can understand all of this. Then it becomes just issues about how you handle negotiations, how you handle egos. That's all it is.
So when it comes to negotiations, again, do you think there are any principles that certainly we need to follow? Okay.
See, there is a business secret in negotiations. So that is something that I train everyone in my office, how to do a negotiation.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So we typically do something known as a pre-negotiation. That's what helps us close actually transactions better.
So again, there's something that you follow which is pretty interesting. Something called 48-hour rule.
Yeah.
So you make sure that everyone in your office actually is very specific and knows what he's doing for the next 48 hours.
Yes.
So how did that thing come in and how do you actually implement that particular aspect?
Right. So you know what typically happens is when your office is growing and you begin to hire a lot more people, you actually begin to realize that you're not able to find the right potential of that particular resource or his particular strength. So typically for about 45 days, I actually let the resource float around every vertical. Let him find his own comfort zone. Once he finds his own actually comfort zone in about 30 to 45 days, one resource has even taken 6 months. He's been through all the verticals and he's still struggling to find what he wants to find.
But you still bear him.
Yeah, we actually still bear him. So we don't like to remove anyone unless, like I told you, we have only lost one employee due to personal reasons. So we don't like to remove anyone. So we're giving them time. But you know, once the resource finds what he wants to do, then we begin to set a plan for him. So the plan is like, we first set a 30-day plan. Then we actually tell him what he needs to achieve in 7 days. And then 14 days, 21 days and actually 30 days. So his first 7-day plan is very, very clearly defined. What time he enters office, what's it that he needs to do the whole day. Hour to hour is actually, it is sorted out, scheduled for him. And at the end of the week we understand whether he is really able to handle that. If he is not able to handle that, then we shift him to another job next week itself. So everyone, right from me, right up to everyone in the office, definitely knows what they're doing between the next 2 days to the next 10 days. I know what I'm doing for my next 10 days.
So again, so one end there's a client, and on the other end, if the person whom you have hired is not able to handle the workload, so this particular person is going to, it's going to get affected. So how do you make sure that this is not getting affected and then make sure like even this particular thing is getting balanced? How do you do that?
So if you look at the office, I'm more I'm like the troubleshooting guy. So it's, you know, when somebody is not able to handle a deal, I actually back up for them. Like for example, I'm backing up currently for Vinay. We have a residential apartment which is going to be registered tomorrow. He doesn't have the time, so no, I'm actually handling it. But at the end of the day, even if I do the deal completely, they're going to get their share. Whatever is the incentive from the top line, that's fixed. They are actually going to get it still, even if they don't do anything in it. It's a very, very unique way that office works. It's the other offices are only if you get involved in the business you get paid, but no, our office, every commercial transaction, the commercial team gets their incentive whether or not I back up for them, whether or not they do anything for it. So I'm there to back up for actually everyone, and even Albert backs up sometimes, and we all back up for each other. Sometimes when I'm off on a long vacation, I inform Vinay that you need to do this for me, and then Albert, I actually tell Albert something, then Ravi does something for me.
Again, when it comes to suffering, though you have already told me a lot of things that you have gone through till now, So is there any other specific area of life that you have suffered a lot?
Nothing at all. I haven't seen of the suffering that not so many people have seen. I think that I've had a very good journey, very smooth, and it's been fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then what about so when it comes to belief systems? So I feel belief systems are the ones that actually run the actions that we actually do. So is there any specific belief system for you that other people actually call it insane? Any specific?
Insane is again subjective. I mean, I could find anything insane, but in terms of belief system, it's not that I go to temples or actually worship God, but I believe in conscience. I mean, all of us know what is right and what is wrong. So for as long as you are true to yourself and think that you're doing right, you're fine. But knowingly doing wrong, what actually many people do, that's not something that my conscience permits me to do.
So whom do you look up to whenever you think of the word successful?
Success is purely a relative term. Success is. Some people look at money as success. Some people look at achievement as success. So for me, it started off in 2016 when I actually took that 2-year break, 14 to 16, just heading Korea and actually not doing any real estate. I spent more time in Korea office than actually my own office. So success for me is actually doing something that I thought was not possible for me to do. So that's how I look at success. In actually terms of an icon or an idol, I really don't have anyone. It's not that I'm emulating anyone. So I don't really look up to anyone at this stage. But yeah, there are so many people like Amitabh Bachchan and many of them around you that you could idolize who are working very well at the age that they are in.
But I want to share with you something. So from the day I met you, so I have been always looking up to you with regards to the thought process actually. So see, when you look at something, the way you carry out the things are very, very specific, and they are a bit more organized, and you make sure that we are following that particular path. That's what I have understood from the way that your thought process goes through. So whenever so from the day I met you, again I keep thinking, so does Amit think this particular way? That thing automatically comes to my mind actually.
You're right. So if you want to know more, you can actually quit your current job and you can join us, and we have a role ready for you.
So before getting to the final question, so how can people find you online? Is there any other? How can people actually reach you online?
Online, I don't know. Vamsi has to decide a plan for me and make me accessible.
Fine. I'll make sure that your LinkedIn is actually going viral.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
So coming to the final question.
Yeah.
So what are you obsessed with?
Sorry, what are
you obsessed with?
What am I obsessed with?
Yeah.
I'm currently obsessed with actually Vinay doing brilliantly well. Luxclusive Homes, rocking it in actually in the luxury apartment space. That's my current obsession. So obsession changes quarter to quarter. Next quarter it actually could be all warehouse. It could be something else. I don't know.
So thank you so much for being on the show, sir.
Yeah, pleasure is mine.
So hope you will actually pick up very few specific things that can actually elevate your mindset. Thank you.